Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello, everybody. Welcome to one more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. And we have joining us from Brussels in Belgium, somebody that I've met a long time ago in the Agile community, Frederik van Nieuwenhausen. Hey, Frederik. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Vasco. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. And of course, I can't imagine why it took so long for us to chat on the podcast. But hey, there you go. You are here now, and that's awesome. So Frederik is a certified team and enterprise coach by the Scrum Alliance. He works and lives in Belgium and is part of a company named Eileen. And that's I as in the letter I, and then lean as in lean, not Eileen as the name of a person. So that's an important differentiation. Frederik has worked as a Scrum Master, product owner, and Agile coach, and he works with teams and leadership to improve collaboration, flow, and learning. He also co-organizes the XP Days Benelux conference, which into 2023, when we are recording this, will complete its 20th year. And that's quite a life there for a conference. He's also a regular speaker at local and international conferences. So, Frederik, that was a short intro. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you end up becoming a Scrum Master?
Yes, thank you, Vasco. Well, my name is Frederik. I'm a father of 3 kids. And that's a busy life, but it is also
an achievement as well, by the way.
Yes. So there is a passion with my 3 kids, my family, and also a lot of passion for Agile and Scrum, obviously. So how did I become a Scrum Master? Well, it was a bit by coincidence at first. And in this story, I only found out afterwards that I was actually a Scrum Master. Because what happened is I was started as a consultant in a project as an analyst, a business analyst. It was for a web development project. And yeah, I've done some high-level analysis. And instead of, continuing with the specification of the requirements and so on, I said to the IT manager, I think it's about time that we start developing. So we gathered a few developers and the IT manager asked me, can you just stay around, to manage the project, to manage the plan? He likes to have the people who were initially involved also there. I said, yeah, sure. But what I ended up doing was actually facilitating, creating a space where the developers could self-organize. We had the customer just in our room. And yeah, I saw other teams visualizing things. We were also visualizing. We had our daily sync meeting. We had a review with the customer at the end of the week. I was asking how can we do things better. So that's it, review, retrospectives. There was daily stand-up. I kind of figured out that was actually my first time that I was in this Scrum Master facilitator role. So you were
kind of doing the Scrum Master work without thinking about doing the Scrum Master work, right? Like you were just doing it without worrying about the names or the terminology or wherever it was.
Yes, but this is 15 years ago. So at that time, I didn't even have any formal training in Scrum. I just heard about it. So that was really the first exposure, let's say, to this way of working.
And 15 years ago, of course, Scrum was just starting its super fast rise to popularity. It is these days the most popular Agile framework out there. But of course, the reality today is different. And because we are on the Monday episode, Frederik, we want to look at what might be one of those moments in those last 15 years that, you did your best, but at that time, as it so often happens, the best just wasn't good enough. So tell us that story. Walk us through the steps so that we know, where you were, what were the things happening. We'll dive into the details later, but tell us that story, Frederik.
Yeah, so at times when I face difficulties is when I get caught up in corporate politics. And in this particular time, I was first in the role of product owner, and I gave up my role of product owner to become Scrum Master. Now, the short story of this is that we were working for a client. I was product owner of the app development team. Another colleague was product owner for the web development team, but we're actually serving the same customer, the same brand, managing two backlogs. And at that time, I had knowledge about large-scale Scrum, where you work rather with one product owner, one product backlog. So I gave up my product owner role so that my colleague could become the one product owner for app and web development. And then management asked me, could you become Scrum Master? And I said, yes. So I became Scrum Master for this project. But I ended up with a team of 20 people, and I was facing corporate politics. Like, in essence, any time where I feel that the stakeholders and the client is rather looking at the developers as, just develop what we have asked for. A bit,
so
you're the supplier,
right?
Order takers, a bit feature factory. I feel, nervous. I feel like I wanna improve the collaboration space between stakeholders and product owner and developers. But in this particular situation, I really got caught up in corporate politics where there were stakeholders with a strong influence. And at any time where, they have in mind, we are specifying what you have to do. And it involved a substantial change of the branding and replacing an old platform. So stakeholders have in mind, this is going to be the big bang release. You're going to make it. It's going live, and it has to be perfect. And I want to get into a space. Let's try something out. Let's try to work in an incremental, iterative way. As such, this is not so special or anything. But there, I really struggled to.
So, what were some of the I would say probably objections or kind of counter arguments that you got when you suggested, hey, let's think about this more incrementally. We'd go with version 1, then we start improving it. What was the opposition you were getting to those thoughts and those ideas?
Yeah, well, this involved a public broadcaster. So, a change in brand, it's visible for the whole population or in the country. So they want to do it once and only at that one time. And functionally, we were basically replacing an old system. Although, of course, everybody wanted to improve on the user experience, for example. But that was mainly the argument. We can only go public with this change
so
once.
So it's like it's only done when everything is there and all the functionality needs to be migrated, and it needs to be migrated at one go.
Yeah. So what we did was still kind of set up some UX research, some building of prototypes, some usability tests on the smaller scale. But really launching publicly a first version before everything was done and ready, that was kind of impossible.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And even if it were possible, like one of the things that I very often run into in this, I call them rewrite projects. And correct. Usually the comments I get are, it's a no-brainer. We need to have everything before we can go live. It's a no-brainer. And I'm like, when you don't use your brain, that's when you get no-brainers. Because actually, if you just think about it rationally for a minute, right? If a system that is live maybe took 5-10 years to develop, it happened to me, a system that had 10 years to develop, and the company wanted to replace it in a project of 6 months. And of course, when I left that company 3 years later, they were still trying to replace the old system. And it's a no-brainer that it will fail. Exactly, because you can't replace a system that takes 10 years to develop with a 6-month project.
And it's never exactly the same. I mean,
and it shouldn't be like that.
It shouldn't be. You have new possibilities. You can improve, even if functionality, the main functionalities are the same. You can improve on the whole user experience. There are new possibilities. So, but they kind of understood that, and when reality hit, they have to make choices anyway. They have to make choices. So, as the deadline
especially
approach,
because if nothing else, they will be late, very late.
Indeed.
So, if you had to go back to that time, Frederik, what would you do differently if you had to go through the same situation again?
Yeah, be more proactive. Be more proactive. Also, as a Scrum Master, I mean, I ended up with a product owner and a UX researcher facilitating techniques such as impact mapping, user story mapping. You know, really create a visual user story so things become visible. Together with developers, together with stakeholders, to really get a good insight of what are we going to create here, what is valuable, what are things that we could put a bit lower on the backlog, but at least that we get some kind of slicing done. We can't eat an elephant in one go, so let's create smaller pieces, and by doing this together with the stakeholders and the developers, we can get more insights. What I would have done is, from the beginning, as a Scrum Master, I think in an organization, you need to have a good working relationship with management and with higher management. So if you have some difficulties in agreeing upon things, or just get some time available of a stakeholder. And sometimes that's even the basic problem. They don't want to join your workshop because they say, we don't have time for this, that you have some other managers who understand what you're trying to achieve and who can help you to get this kind of things done. Yeah. Another thing that I would have done is, and I propose that to teams nowadays earlier, is let's do a retrospective and invite one of our stakeholders. Of course, the team has to be ready for this. There needs to be a safe space and so on and so on. But just to kind of, create...
So kind of get them to understand together what the challenges are.
Exactly, together. Because very, very often they're looking at it from opposite point of view.
And opposite needs as well,
and opposite needs. So get more to a shared understanding.
Exactly. And in that, I would even say that shared understanding between stakeholders and the development team needs to be the core of whatever the approach will be in the future, right? Because that shared understanding creates that language that we can then use in negotiations, like what do we drop, what don't we drop, what do we focus on, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Great story.
Exactly.
Thank you for sharing that, Frederik.
Thank you.
Monday is about what we learned from our obstacles and our failures. But tomorrow is Team Tuesday here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. We explore teams and their journeys, the habits they develop that threaten their performance, how each of our guests help their teams evolve, and the one key lesson they learned from that experience. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.